The world goes dark, not in patches but all at once. An event, whether natural or man-made, has permanently crippled the global electrical grid. Cities fall silent, their lights extinguished forever. But in hundreds of locations across the planet, a different kind of silence descends, one heavy with a unique and pressing danger. Inside the control rooms of the world's nuclear power plants, the hum of the grid connection is gone. In its place, alarms begin to sound and a critical, automated sequence initiates. This is the story of what happens when the lifeline of civilization is cut, and the immense power we harnessed is left to fend for itself in the dark. The very first action within a nuclear reactor during a grid failure is known as a SCRAM. It is an emergency shutdown, and in most designs, it is automatic and fail-safe. The moment the plant's connection to the external grid is severed, powerful electromagnets holding the control rods above the reactor core are de-energized. Gravity takes over. Heavy rods made of neutron-absorbing materials like boron or cadmium drop instantly into the core. Within seconds, they soak up the free neutrons that sustain the nuclear chain reaction. The fission process, the violent splitting of atoms that generates immense heat, comes to an abrupt halt. The reactor is, for all intents and purposes, turned off. From the outside, the great steam plumes from the cooling towers might begin to thin. The immediate crisis of an ongoing, uncontrolled reaction has been averted. But the danger is far from over. Even after fission has stopped, the reactor core remains a colossal source of heat. The spent nuclear fuel is filled with highly radioactive fission products, the atomic fragments left over from the split uranium atoms. These fragments are unstable, and as they decay into more stable forms, they continue to release enormous amounts of energy. This is known as decay heat. Immediately after shutdown, a reactor can still be producing up to 7% of its full operational thermal power, while that percentage drops over time to about 1% after a day. It represents a thermal load measured in megawatts. Without a constant flow of coolant to carry this heat away, the fuel rods will rapidly overheat. Their zirconium cladding will fail, and the uranium fuel pellets inside will begin to melt. This is the fundamental challenge. A reactor, even when off, must be actively cooled for months, if not years. With the grid gone, the plant must power its own cooling pumps. This is where the next line of defense comes online: the emergency diesel generators. In the seconds following the grid collapse, these massive engines, often the size of buses, are designed to automatically roar to life. Their activation restores power to the essential systems: the control room, monitoring equipment, and most critically, the pumps circulating water through the reactor core and the spent fuel pools. For a time, the situation is stabilized. The operators in the control room can monitor temperatures and pressures, ensuring the decay heat is being managed. But these generators are a temporary solution, a bridge to a power source that, in this scenario, will never return. Their fuel tanks are finite. Depending on the plant's specific regulations and preparedness, they may hold enough diesel for a few days, or in the best-case scenarios, a few weeks. Every hour they run, they consume a resource that cannot be replenished. The clock is now ticking. The 2011 Fukushima Daiichi disaster serves as a chilling, real-world case study, a microcosm of the global scenario we are exploring. When the tsunami struck, it not only severed the plant's connection to the grid, but also flooded and destroyed its emergency diesel generators. Without power, the cooling systems for 3 of the reactors failed. The decay heat, unchecked, began to build. The events that followed the overheating of the cores, the production of hydrogen gas from reactions with the zirconium cladding, the subsequent explosions, and the eventual meltdowns demonstrated precisely what happens when a nuclear plant is deprived of its cooling function. Now, imagine this not at one site, but at hundreds of sites simultaneously. The lessons from Fukushima are stark. The loss of both primary and emergency power is the direct pathway to a catastrophic failure. If the diesel generators run out of fuel, or if they fail for any mechanical reason, the plant enters a state of station blackout. The operators are plunged into a desperate struggle against thermodynamics. Without electricity, the main coolant pumps stop. Temperatures inside the reactor core begin to climb degree by degree, minute by minute. Water boils away, turning to steam and increasing the pressure inside the reactor vessel to dangerous levels. Operators might be able to manually vent the steam to relieve pressure, but in doing so, they also release radioactive material and lose the very water needed to cool the fuel. It becomes a losing battle. The fuel rods will eventually be exposed. Their temperature will soar past their melting point of over 2,800 degrees Celsius, and the core will begin to slump into a molten, intensely radioactive mass known as corium. This is a core meltdown. The final containment barriers are all that stand between this material and the outside world. Recognizing this vulnerability, modern reactor designs have incorporated advanced safety systems, many of which are passive. These systems are engineered to function without the need for external power or human intervention, relying instead on natural forces like gravity, condensation, and natural circulation. For example, some designs feature massive water tanks situated above the reactor vessel. If all power is lost, valves held shut by electricity would automatically open, allowing gravity to flood the core with cooling water. Other systems are designed to promote the natural circulation of air or water to passively carry heat away from the containment building itself. These features significantly extend the coping time a plant has during a blackout. However, even these passive systems are not infinite. They are designed to provide a grace period of hours or days, buying time for external power to be restored. In a world where the grid is gone forever, data will eventually be exhausted. So, how long can a plant truly survive on its own? The answer varies greatly. A plant with fully fueled, well-maintained diesel generators and large on-site fuel reserves might last for several weeks. A modern plant with advanced passive cooling systems could potentially manage its decay heat for a few additional days or even longer after the generators fall silent. But without any possibility of refueling or repair, without a functioning industrial base to provide new parts or diesel, every single plant is on a finite timeline. Whether that timeline is 3 days or 3 weeks, the end result is the same. The laws of physics are relentless. The decay heat must go somewhere, and if it cannot be actively removed, it will melt the core that contains it. In this scenario, the human element becomes a story of profound and terrifying isolation. The operators, highly trained professionals, find themselves in a darkening control room, lit only by the fading glow of battery-powered emergency lights and the screens of their consoles. They are the last guardians of a technology that is slowly failing. They would work through their emergency procedures, attempting to conserve fuel, manually align systems, and do everything in their power to prolong the cooling process. But they are cut off. There is no shift change coming. There is no external support on its way. They are trapped in a concrete fortress with a dying giant, watching the inevitable approach on their monitors, listening to the silence grow as one system after another powers down for the last time. The global consequences of such a widespread failure are almost beyond comprehension. We are not talking about a single Chernobyl or a single Fukushima. We are talking about the potential for dozens, or even hundreds, of similar events unfolding across North America, Europe, and Asia. As containment is breached at site after site, vast plumes of radioactive isotopes would be released into the atmosphere. Prevailing winds would carry this fallout across continents and oceans, rendering immense tracts of land uninhabitable for centuries. The intricate web of global agriculture would collapse, not just from the loss of infrastructure but from the contamination of soil and water. The long-term health effects on any survivors would be devastating. It would be an extinction-level event, not through the blast of a bomb, but through the slow, silent, and irreversible poisoning of the biosphere. According to analyses from the U.S. EMP Commission and IAEA emergency frameworks, a coordinated, permanent grid-down event is perhaps the single greatest threat multiplier for the risks associated with our nuclear infrastructure. It turns our greatest source of clean power into a prepositioned, planet-altering radiological weapon, set on a timer with no way to disarm it. The world would not end in a flash of light, but in the quiet, creeping death that follows when the hum of civilization finally stops, and the fires we lit to hold back the darkness are left to burn themselves out.